Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at some Olsa Tools 1/2-inch drive stubby impact sockets. We're going to take a look at the SAE and we're going to take a look at the metric. So one thing I like about these is they come in a nice cardboard box that is not overly hard to get your tools out. And they are made in Taiwan, if you're keeping track. Okay, now looking at these, they both come on a nice set of rails to help keep them organized. And I'm not against socket rails. I actually kind of like them. They're an efficient use of space in your toolbox if you're keeping things in a toolbox. If you have them in a tool carry, rails tend to be a little frustrating. Stuff falls off of them. Kind of either something that they're deeply set in or just free range sockets seems to be the plight of a tool carry bag. But if you are in a tool drawer, these are perfectly fine on the rail. They're nicely kept and organized that way. The rails themselves are pretty nice. They actually have a ball detent on the rail. The only thing that I can say about that is I wish the ball detent was turned 90 degrees so that you could see the sizes of your sockets and be on the ball detent. So I'll set the 1-inch here. You can see that's in the ball, but now you can't really read your sizes too well. So that's the only disadvantage there, but that's a little nitpicky. At least they give you a reasonably decent rail to keep your sockets on if you have them in a tool drawer. Looking at them otherwise, they are nice and compact. If you have yourself a 1/2-inch drive ratchet with a ball detent locking on it, these are nice and compact. You get a pretty slim profile that way, and it's not like your normal sockets. Now, if you're starting something with, say, a nut and the threads are going to be sticking up through, this might not be something that you want. This is really just for a bolt head, and that's what you're going to be working on. If it's a nut with threads, chances are you're not going to be too happy with these because it's going to lose engagement. But this locks on very well. You can see our ball detent right there, and it's not really all that loosey-goosey. It's on there nicely. So that's if you use a 1/2-inch ratchet. Now the other way, which I think was really clever, that you can drive these is if you have a 22mm ratcheting wrench. That's the size of the hex. Now, this obviously falls right out, but what Ulsa did was they came out with this clever set of 1/2-inch knurled outside pieces that you can put that into your socket and hold the socket into your 22mm ratcheting wrench. And now this is a very, very slim setup. And if we want to look at how slim, we are right at 1.25 inches. So 1.25 inches depth for a 1-inch socket to drive something. That is very compact, and that is something that can really get you out of a fix if you're in a tight spot. So I really thought this was an interesting idea, especially when I saw that they sell this tool to utilize with your ratcheting wrench. And it does hold pretty well. So the way the tool works is it has a spring detent, just like your ratchet would, and it just pushes right into this socket, just like that. And then of course your 22mm sits inside of it. So that's really neat. I think that's a really interesting way to try and get everything into a tight space. And of course you could go with the downward angle if needed. You guys know how all this works. The sky's the limit. So I thought that was really neat. Now, looking at the sockets themselves, since we have a nice large one out here, you can see they did a pretty good job. They've got relief cut into the corners, so we're relying on the flat parts of the fastener, not the corners. So we don't stand a huge risk of stripping out corners. And with these relief cuts in here, it helps you get on a fastener if somebody was there before you and started to strip out the fastener with a nut lathe. So that is nice to see. These are chromoly. This part that you see here is laser etched inside the tool, but they are also struck. So as the laser etching wears off, as time goes on and you use these, you'll still have them struck chromoly number 1, and all of the sizes are struck the same way. Taking a look at a metric one, you can see pretty much all of the same traits. Have your nice relief cut in there. There are marks on the hex for if something has a drive ring in it. I don't have anything that has that, but that would be a partial means of retention as well. Now, I don't know if Ulsa sells something else or another manufacturer has a 22 mil drive that has a retaining ring in it. Let me know in the comments below. We could take a look at one of those in a video with these sockets if there is something like that. And overall, I just think this is a really nicely made set. Now, some people might say, hey, I know at the Harbor Freight, they sell a SAE set. I don't know if there's a metric set. An SAE set, which is basically identical to this Ulsa set. And you would be right. It pretty much is basically the same thing. There are some subtle differences, which makes me think they aren't made exactly in the same place, but they are similar. The Ulsa says 3/8 chromoly, and this just says 3/8 struck in it. So I don't think they're exactly the same. Two different manufacturers, the way everything looks. But spec-wise, I do think they're similar. The Ulsas also work in a 22 mil, or I should say the Quins also work in the 22 mil. And if you use the Ulsa ratchet holder, it also works with the Quins, though you can hear the Quin has a little bit more slop in it, I think, than the Ulsa does. Let's slap the Ulsa in. Now they're about the same. So it's just that 1 inch that was a little tighter. Alright, so we could probably go ahead here and see how hard these sockets are. It might be something interesting to see. They are chromoly, so they should hold up pretty well. We're going to start with a 60. And it appears as though we're digging in. I think on this, yeah, this inner surface, we're probably digging in there. Let's just do the 65 to see. Yeah, so the 60 is not digging in as easily. It's starting to skate, and I'm going to guess the 55 is going to skate. Yeah, 55 skating. So I would say this is a high 50s, low 60s range of hardness on these sockets, which I think is probably pretty good because you want your sockets to be harder than your fasteners. You don't want to be stripping your sockets out and have the fasteners damaging your sockets. So I think that's probably pretty good for these. You can't have them super hard, otherwise the impact will shatter them. So there is a little bit of a back and forth sweet spot type thing there. Now let's talk sizes when we go through here. The SAE set goes from 3/8 by 1/16 full set all the way to 1 inch. The metric set goes all the way up by millimeters, every single one of them, to 24. So 10 to 24, you have everything in between. And the SAE set goes from 3/8 to 1 inch. How do I think about these overall? I think they're very nice. They have a decent amount of meat around them because they're impact sockets. Sometimes you like to see something a little bit shallower on your sockets, but keep in mind these are impacts and they're so shallow. This is the only strength that this socket's going to have. I know we've seen thinner profile impact sockets in the past, but they've been either deep or mid-depth. We don't see as many shallow wall, shallow sockets. So that's something to keep in mind. So your OD on these is a little bit larger than some of the other sockets out there, but I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's something within reason because, like I said, all of the strength of this socket is going to have to be in this outer diameter. So that's something to keep in mind. But they are not super, super narrow. I guess one that's used all the time. Let's go with our 3/4, and to give somebody an idea, the OD of the 3/4 is basically, you're just shy of 1.125", probably 1.16" So that's something that if you want a point of reference for your 3/4 socket, that would give you an idea. 3/4 also being 19, so we should see the same number for the 19, and we do. So that's something that if you want to reference, and I would say they're fairly consistent going through all of the sizes proportionately. If you had a set of sockets that your 3/4 is around that diameter, that's going to tell you approximately what all of these are going to be like in the head size. So let me know your thoughts below. I think these are really neat. I think they bring a level of versatility into the shop that you wouldn't otherwise have. Sometimes you just need to get onto the bolt head and you need something slim to do it. And these will do that for you. They definitely are nice and shallow. You have a nice ball detent. I do not see that they're hollowed out for the hog ring. So the hog ring is just going to be locking in your ball. But that's okay. I think we get a decent engagement with a hog ring. We could test that quick. So here we have our Milwaukee 1/2" drive impact with a hog ring. And all I'm going to do is slide it onto here, and it kind of wants to come out, but we can see that hog ring is what's grabbing that hole in the socket for the ball detent. You can see that the head of the impact is right up inside there. So that is just about going to be flush of your anvil, I should say. The anvils are up in there, and it takes a fair amount of force to get it off of the impact, but just be aware that is not, you're relying on what that slot cut, or that hole cut in there for the socket pin detent is going to be. So it will work with hog rings. If you have a pin detent ratchet or impact gun, if you are rocking with a pin detent impact, you will probably be very satisfied with this, because it is not going to be coming off of there. That pin detent is going to keep it nice and solidly affixed. And you can see with this stubby-esque impact and that stubby socket, we get to an overall length for this 24 millimeter. We get a 5 3/8 overall length. So that's pretty short if you're trying to get into a tight spot. So let me know your thoughts below. I thought this was a really neat set of sockets to try and pick up and have to get some auxiliary capabilities in the shop when you're in tight spots. I always like stuff like this. The ability of throwing these clips, as Olsa Tools calls them, onto these sockets and utilize it with your 22 millimeter ratcheting wrench if you choose to go reversing or non-reversing. That is one way to bring a super level of versatility and compactness to these sockets. Of course, if you utilize one of the many compact versions of Impact available out on the market, that also brings this to be a nice compact tool. Now, even if you don't have compact ratchets, if you have regular ratchets or regular impact guns, you still make everything more compact, and if you only need that little bit more, you'll get it with these sockets. So, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you have a set of these? Have you had problems with them? Have they bailed you out? Has it been a problem if you're using a hog ring impact with just relying on this pin detent hole? Or is there any other things? Do you know of the driver that they seem to have this marked out for? I like to hear all those things below in the comments. I think it's great. We're building a nice community of really knowledgeable people who are willing to help and share their knowledge in the comments below. So that is greatly appreciated, and I really like seeing it. So as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.